Hello. Hello and welcome. We're still at 7 o'clock my time, Vancouver, BC. I see some people, it's still morning light coming through the windows. So good morning, good afternoon, good night. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. All right, and in the interest of time, we're 1 minute in. We will begin and we'll let everyone else trickle in. So thank you so much for joining the session ABCDE, Centering Equity in Asset-Based Community Development Efforts. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes to make the process smooth and enjoyable for everyone. Please remain muted unless invited to speak to reduce background noise. And if you can keep your camera on so we can see your bright face, that would be great. We do have a tech support. So Jeff Manton, tech host, is here to answer any tech questions or troubleshoot. So feel free to message him. And these sessions are recorded by the conference. So if you prefer not to be on camera, feel free to turn your video off. And let's get started. I would like to invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat, share your name, pronouns, your location, and the land, the traditional indigenous land that you're joining us from. Great. My name is Ksenia, and I'm joining you here today from the traditional, ancestral, and stolen lands of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, which is colonially known now as Vancouver, BC. And I'm a cisgendered Caucasian woman with medium length blonde hair, and today I'm wearing hoop earrings and burgundy shirt. So the visual description for everyone. And I come from the traditional lands of Evenks and Trofalars in Siberia, Russia. It's a small town with a sense of community. And when I moved to Canada 14 years ago now, the first thing that struck me is the culture that is more individualistic and the lack of community and feeling of belonging. And this is where my journey from me to we has started. And truly, I saw the world and all the problems that it was facing, all of these big, wicked issues. And I wanted to change the world as a young 17-year-old moving to the big city. Of course, you want to change the world with an idealistic attitude. And by doing my research and going to university, the single most important and sure way that I found to change the world is by people coming together. And this is where I decided to start. And I did take international relations in university, but I came to realization that the change starts in our neighborhoods when citizens, caring neighbors come together and start conversations on the issues that they're passionate about. And this is how I found out about community building, community development, and asset-based community development. And that gave me hope. That gave me hope for the future and for our planet, to be honest. And throughout my work, I've done grassroots community building, community organizing, mobilized volunteers through COVID pandemic to help seniors, run a number of resident land projects, and learned some powerful lessons that truly ABCD is such a powerful tool to bring people together, take action, and build community. I was also engaged with the City of Vancouver community engagement efforts, where we were tasked to ask people from equity denied groups on their opinions about public policy and what their opinions and wishes are. And this was my first experience being exposed to the reality that not all voices are heard in community life and political life. And right now in my work in food justice in my local neighborhood, I see that a lot of voices are left unheard. And oftentimes these are the voices that are most impacted by the issue. And right now, I'm also working on my master's in community development, where once again, I learn about the power of asset-based community development, and also the critical role that power and inequities can play in our efforts as we build communities. So I come here today with the belief that we truly can change the world through asset-based community development. But I argue that it's time to put E in ABCD. And with that, I would like to invite you to embark on a conversation. How can we center equity, and what does equity mean? What do we mean when we talk about equity? And I have to say, I'm no expert and I don't have all the answers, and I wonder who does. But in line with the collaborative spirit of this conference, UnConference, where we exchange ideas and learn together, I would like to share what I have learned and also invite you to share your valuable experiences, your learnings, and your knowledge. And after a short presentation, I would like to invite a group discussion, and we'll come back to share the learnings. But first, I want to see who is in the room. So we have Boulder, Colorado, and Sweden, Australia, Chicago. This is fantastic. New Zealand, hello. Truly, the whole world. United States, this is amazing. Hello, Toronto. This is so wonderful. And once again, all of us doing the asset-based community development in our own neighborhoods, in our own communities, and then we come together and truly connecting the world in the spirit of ABCD Global. This is fantastic. All right, so let us begin. First of all, let's start from the basics. What is community development? And in my work, this is the definition that I adopt and I am guided by. So defined in the most simplest terms, it's the process through which ordinary people, neighbors, citizens, collectively attempt to influence their life circumstances. And it promotes community self-help and citizen participation. And in my work, and I found that community-led development, asset-based community development is superior to institution-led development in all regards. So based on the works of Cormac Russell and John McKnight and Paul Bourne, Peter Block, I put together this visual comparing and showing the contrast, what we have when institutions lead the community and development versus when the community is in charge and of the seat. So with institutions, it is oftentimes top-down blanket approaches that truly strip community of power and create dependency. And when salaried strangers deliver service through transactions, it cannot compare to caring neighbors that provide care and relationships. And John McKnight believes that neighborhoods, they're in unique positions to provide some essential community functions, provision of health. It's not the responsibility of the hospital and medical institutions. Of safety and security, it's the responsibility of each of us in the neighborhoods and not the police. Raising children, caring for the elderly. And we, from institutions to community, we move from what's wrong with problems and needs to what's strong, gifts and assets, and we celebrate those. And community-led development truly celebrates relocation of power to communities as one of the central benefits. And I am passionate about the promise of community-led development, asset-based community development for democracy. I often say that democracy truly starts in the neighborhoods. When active citizens participate in democracy and able to create the city, the community that they want to live in. Oftentimes we think about democracy in a minimalist way, where it is limited to elections. I often say that democracy goes beyond the ballot box. It's truly by participating actively in local community life that people learn the real meaning of citizenship. And they discover that some of the personal troubles are widely shared, and how apparently private concerns are in fact implicated in public policy and public issues. And it is in shared deliberation that citizens revise their own understanding of their individual self-interest and the public interest. And having this experience of participating and taking action in the community and seeing those tangible results of their actions, they realize and both perfect and practice, but also become aware of the potential of their own capacities and the power of community. And people with this kind of face-to-face experience among the neighbors, as we see in asset-based community development, truly are effective democratic citizens. And it arguably makes a connection to more distant national representatives. So it goes beyond the neighborhood, the city, and spread across to the country. So democracy starts in neighborhoods. But despite all of these amazing benefits that asset-based community development can deliver, there is one law that is at play that we have to be very aware of. And this is the law of attraction. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie, read the book, that basically like attracts like, and birds of feather flock together. And it is easy to explain because it is familiar, it's safe. So we do often, our friends look like us. In asset-based community development, we oftentimes look for extroverted community leaders that also look like us. And it is psychological, primal instinct that helps us to survive. And this is the way that our brain creates shortcuts. But the reality is that we live in increasingly diverse communities. Immigration in Canada accounts for 94% of population growth in the second quarter of 2022. And by 2041, if current trends continue, half of the Canadian population will be made up of immigrants and their Canadian-born children, which bring, the people bring their own values, their own cultural protocols, ways of being, ways of thinking, and also economic inequality plays a role. Most recent data in Canada, the first report of the National Advisory Council on Poverty in 2018, says that 1 in 9 people in Canada live in poverty. And poverty affects other determinants of health and the opportunities that we're presented with. So some groups have disproportionately high levels of poverty, including individuals that are unhoused, people with disabilities, children, recent immigrants, and the list continues. And even on more basic level, we are different people, period. And if you have a husband or wife, you probably know what I'm talking. We're all different. We have our own personalities, we have our own life experiences, we bring our traumas into everywhere we go. So of course, when we are active in community life, asset-based community development, all of these factors play a big role. And oftentimes ABCD has been criticized for not taking into account those nuances and those barriers that exist for participation. And if are not addressed, ABCD, as wonderful as it is, actually runs a risk of perpetuating inequalities and harmful systems of oppression. And that's when we start our conversation about equity. So what does it mean? What does equity mean? And I would like to invite you in the chat, just drop a few words, associations. When you think about equity, or when you see the word equity, when you hear it, what comes to mind? Just any words, doesn't have to be a long, comprehensive definition, but let's see what we think. participation. Everyone gets what they need. I really like that. Okay, the cartoon comes to mind. Wonderful. Yes. I'll have that image later on, so everyone knows what it is. No barriers, no boundaries. Fairness. Paying attention. This is wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. These are all great examples. Being heard, listened to, included. This is great. Thank you. Yes, so I think I jumped ahead. Okay, so we're still on equity. We're still looking at what it means. And the definitions and perceptions of what equity is are different. Oftentimes it is being accused of being a buzzword, swear word, and they say that the fact that we don't know what equity is and what it looks like in the society is quite scary because we've never actually had it. That just goes to show. So oftentimes we think equity, diversity, whereas diversity is a numerical representation of different types of people and different backgrounds and experiences. We talk about inclusion. People mention participation, which is the foundation. It's the action or state of being included within a group or structure. And it does include participation and feeling of belonging. Oftentimes we hear equity and equality in the same sentence, and this is where this cartoon comes to play. Equality is where everyone has the same amount of something, either it's food, medicine, opportunity, same box that they stand on, despite their existing needs or assets. And in the photo here, we see that everyone has different needs and different assets. And as you can see, equality can actually have opposite effect, that it can support those who don't need any support and perpetuate those power imbalances once again. By definition, essentially, equity is getting what we need to survive or succeed. It's about what each of us needs, depending on our unique needs. Whether it's access to opportunity, networks, resources, or supports, and based on where we are now and where we need to go. And equitable outcomes often require differential treatment. So to achieve a level playing field among all individuals and communities. And it requires us to, with intention, as someone mentioned, to recognize and address those barriers that provide opportunity for all individuals to thrive. And how can equity, lack of equity, look like? Well, first of all, when we talk about equity, you oftentimes hear those big words of systems of oppression and perpetuating inequality. And simply put, our world is just set to work for the majority. And unless you're part of equity denied groups, part of minority groups, you don't even notice that. And that just goes to show that this is true. So some of the examples that we have seen in the past 2 years is that access to technology. Most of us were quickly able to switch to Zoom and continue on with our work, with our lives. But for a lot of people, technology serves as a barrier to participation. Also, based on cultural background, in my work, in my experience, I found that, for example, when engaging Chinese seniors, we have a Chinese seniors population in the community that I worked with, and we were inviting them to discussion groups, to community events, but we soon found out through people who work with them that they would never share their concerns or complaints in a public formal setting. So that's why it was important to build one-on-one relationships and to build trust. Recent experience that I had is that I planned an asset-based community development event, community action event, on a date that coincided with a very important Jewish holiday. And of course, I checked the calendar, whether it was statutory holiday and it was not. And a few community members reached out to me saying that they're not able to participate, they were disappointed, and we rescheduled the event. And now I ordered multi-faith calendar, and also Google calendars, I found out has this great function. And also personally, equity can look differently for every person, because we all have different personalities, different characteristics. So some people, visual learners, some people need more time to process information. Some people are not so comfortable to speak in public. So for us to be aware of those nuances. And I would also like to share why equity is important. It sounds like a great idea, but it has some tangible impacts as well. Well, first of all, strong, resilient communities is an outcome of equity. Evidence from several fields suggests that systems with many different components and diverse components are generally more resilient than systems with few and less diverse components. And whether we talk about species, habitats, livelihoods, or knowledge systems. And that is true for communities as well. If we center equity, we can expand the depth and diversity of knowledge and gifts and assets that we can bring on board into the community table. And something that I'm very passionate about is that just process leads to just outcomes. When we talk about social justice, equity, equality in outcomes, we often forget that the process itself must be equitable and just. So if we dream of having beautiful, strong communities where everyone feels included, so we need to start now, every day in our work when we engage with our community members. And finally, community empowerment. And I think this is the most important aspect of equity and being intentional about engaging equity denied groups, is that people who have been denied opportunities, they're often labeled, their whole livelihoods are defined in terms of needs and what is wrong with them. And by involving and including and inviting them into asset-based community development efforts, we can tell them, you matter, you have gifts, you have skills to contribute, and your community needs that. So that allows people to feel needed, important, and valued. And oftentimes people who are experiencing, who are not involved and are considered from equity denied groups, they experience loss of power. And we know that John McKnight, once again, Peter Blog, they speak of citizen mindset, where ordinary citizens exercise their agency to improve their life circumstances. And folks from marginalized communities oftentimes feel that they don't have any power and they don't have any agency. And by involving them in the asset-based community development efforts, we can show them that there is a way that their actions can truly make a difference, even small actions, little by little and baby steps, but truly empower equity denied groups. And with that, let's do it. Let's center equity. Let's add E to ABCD. And how can we begin? So I would like to provide a few ideas that I use in my work. And then we will break into breakout rooms for group discussion. So ideas to begin centering equity. First of all, I think it's very important to reflect on your own positionality, which means who you are. Just ask yourself, what group do I belong in? What culture am I from? How do I look like? what are my life circumstances? What have my life experiences have been? And the chances are is that you can seek equity outside of that circle. And get curious, who is not here and why? I don't want to say who is not included, because I feel like it's not intentional that we don't, everyone is included. Oftentimes everyone is welcome to ABCD table, of course, but oftentimes we share the invitation and we hope that people come. But with people who have been denied equity and not participating in community life in the past, it takes intentional effort. So getting curious and asking who is not here and why the invitation that we put out didn't reach some groups of people, and really reflecting on that. And reaching those people who are not there with intention. And this will be the conversation for our small breakout rooms. And how can we do it in practical ways with reducing barriers, for example, technology, considering all the dates for multi-faith communities, and building relationships and trust. This one is a big one because the dominant structures, they have really undermined the trust of the marginalized community. So we truly need to take our time and do it with integrity. And empathy. This is something that, this is the question that I often ask, what is it like to be you? Whenever we see people that don't look like us or don't think like us, we are often quick to cast judgments and just make assumptions, but pausing for a moment and thinking, what is it like to be you? What is your story? And storytelling is a big vehicle to build empathy. As Margaret Wheatley says, we don't fear people whose story we know. So really listening and embracing humility, listening, learning, asking questions, and accepting feedback. When a few community members with strong emotions pointed out that the event that I scheduled with the best intentions fell on their religious holiday and they didn't feel included, that of course that hurts. But at the same time, I realized that this feedback was important and saw it as a learning opportunity. And finally, discovering gifts, asking what are their gifts that they are willing to share, that they have, that they would be willing to share with the community, that could be valued and used in our asset-based community development efforts. So with that, I would like to invite you to join group discussion. So for the next 15 minutes, so we have 17 participants, that will be 3 groups of 5 to reflect on the following questions. So first of all, reflecting on your own positionality. So what are your experiences? Who are you? What do you bring into this work? So really positioning yourself in that. And the second question, who does not show up? And what barriers to participation have you witnessed in your community from your experience? Maybe there are some barriers to participation that you have experienced yourself. And finally, let's brainstorm ideas and practical ways that we can begin centering equity and being intentional about it. What can you do to ensure that everyone feels included and participates and accepts that invitation? So with that, I think we're ready to get into breakout rooms, unless does anyone have any questions? And we will share a link to a Google Doc, and we will ask one person to be the note taker harvester for their small group, and to share back once we return to the larger group for larger discussion. So let me share the link. And does anyone have any questions at this time? Okay. All right, so there is a link there, Google Docs. We just keep it plain and simple. Are we ready to go into breakout rooms? Yes, all right. So we'll spend there 15 minutes, and at 7:45, we'll come back and we'll share. All right, have a great discussion. Winifred, are you able to join the group? Oh, okay, great. Anna, Debbie, how are you doing? All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you had great discussions. And yes, I saw some activity in the Google Doc, but we'll take notes here. All right. So let's share back.
I didn't have edit access. I've typed all of mine up, but I didn't have edit access to your notes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right.
Same with me. So I have a separate document that I'll just flick to you.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you so much. Well, that's why we're coming back to share and hear. And yes, well, thank you. Let's start with the question number 2. So question number 1 was really a personal reflection question, just to start you getting thinking about where you are and where the rest of your community is. But let's start with question 2. Who does not show up, and what barriers to participation in ABCD have you witnessed or maybe experienced in your community? So feel free either to jump in, or if you have a dedicated person, representative from your group, let's share.
We talked more generally than about our specific communities. So we considered lots of different barriers, from like kind of more obvious barriers like physical accessibility, language, and maybe slightly more hidden barriers like transport, childcare, and even more hidden, like we don't know the people exist, so we never invited them. Or there's jargon, or maybe the organisers don't look like them, so they don't want to come, or the topic's not appealing, or they're neurodivergent, so they don't want to meet in that way. So there's loads of different barriers that are around. We also reflected that, you know, just inviting people isn't enough for a lot of folks. Like, you've really got to make it personal. You've got to get to know them and have a relationship. And, you know, if they're not coming, maybe it's the wrong meeting, or it's the wrong topic, or it's the wrong facilitator, or it's, you know, the wrong this, the wrong that. So kind of having those relationship-based talks instead of this assumption, hey, we're putting on this great thing, why don't you show up?
Absolutely. I really like how you said personal, making it personal and appealing to their needs. But then how do we find out what they care about if we don't ask and if we don't build those relationships? So again, the question, what is it like to be you, and what do you care about? So this is so important. Those are some great considerations. Thank you for sharing. What about second group?
I think we were in group number 1, but I'll jump in second. I don't know whether we necessarily stuck to the questions so much, but I wanted to share a couple of quotes from April. One was being told to go to those who are seen as broken and ask them for help rather than how you can help them. And I thought that kind of led to lots of interesting things, but also at the very end, we stopped asking how we could involve the neighbours in what we were doing and asked what we can do to get involved with what they were doing. And I like that shift. I think so often we sit there and say, come to us because we want something. That's my...
Absolutely. And I think you captured the essence of asset-based community development. Like, what do you have to offer? What are your gifts? Absolutely. And the importance of going where people are, as opposed to, yes, inviting everyone and just waiting and hoping that people show up. So thank you so much. All right. And just as a side note, I changed the editing privileges for the Google Doc. So if you want to drop your notes, feel free. Thank you. And the final question. So what are some practical ways? What are some things that we can consider to reduce those barriers and to ensure that everyone is included? And I think you did mention some of them already. What there are some other practical tangible ways we can start centering equity in our work. I really like that asset-based community development is really practical. So let's share some of those ideas.
I think about ways of welcoming, you know, if you're having a community event with a flyer, how do you talk about if somebody has questions or barriers or things like that?
Absolutely.
I was in a session, it's all a blur now with the different, I haven't even been to that many conference sessions, but I think it was around building abundance in Indigenous communities earlier today. But I think it was Michelle Dunscombe who was talking about it's just a given that, you know, if you're like going into a community or trying to do anything with the community, the first step is a very long process of I think it was in it's in Australia, especially like in an Aboriginal community, like you would just spend, yeah, they said drink copious amounts of tea with the elders, with the community members, having one-on-one conversations. So I mean, for me, part of it is just like before you're hosting anything, you're sitting down with people, you're showing respect to learn their stories, learn their community, learn their concerns before sort of forcing projects or ideas or solutions, even if you think they're what people want. So I just thought like copious amounts of tea really stayed with me. You know, are you doing that groundwork? Are you showing that sincere interest and respect?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in our Western colonial culture, it's really, hello, nice to meet you, let's get down to business. But at the same time, we come into that space with a lot of assumptions, how business should be done. But especially when we are talking about equity and looking for what people's unique needs are, for participation, that relationship building and building trust and getting to know them and getting curious is so critical and important.
That reminds me of that book Greg Mortensen wrote, 3 Cups of Tea. And it is the same thing, that, you know, if you want to have any impact in a community, you know, you really have to take the time to get to know people and earn their respect and trust.
Absolutely. That's what it comes down to. In our community, I started an initiative called Humans of Kitsilano. And last season, we shared stories on belonging. So really highlighting stories of diverse people who call our community home. And that was very interesting, the power of storytelling, and sharing stories is a powerful way to build those relationships and build trust. Exactly. I'm reading April's quote here, Diamond. Yes, it's not about getting the neighbors to tables, but getting invited to the tables they are already around. This is so true. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this great ideas. And I also wanted to ask you, what questions still remain? What are some things that are you still thinking about? I probably won't have answers, but I may incorporate them in my future research and come back to you. But would like to hear, what are some questions, or what is something that you're still hesitant about or struggling with when we talk about centering equity in our community development efforts? Questions, struggles, hesitations.
I find that it's the project that I'm involved in right now, there is a problem. There are two problems really. Getting people curious enough to engage in the teams. I believe that I should never do anything alone. There should always be a core team, as diverse as possible. And that is difficult for people to step forward in that sense. And the other one is to overcome suspicions from the local inhabitants. So what is this? Why is this? It's different, it's new, it can't be good, sort of thing.
Well, that's where the relationships and trust buildings and those cups of tea comes in. Having your why at the center, why are you building relationships and why are you inviting people to the table will come a long way. But those are some valid questions. And I wish you all the best of luck in your project. Yes. Well, thank you so much. I have a few concluding slides here. In the chat, someone shared that mentioned justice. And justice looks like there's no barrier. And I found this, the image, yes, absolutely. So reality is that oftentimes these days, those who already have a lot, they get even more. So success begets success. With equality, everyone gets the same. With equity, everyone needs. And with justice, the barrier is removed. And I truly believe to get to that place, we need to get to come together and advocate, because I feel like where the justice, this is where the system holds us at ransom. So again, by coming together, collective power, and all of us bringing our gifts to the table, we'll be able to eventually remove those barriers for everyone. And to conclude, I would like to say that the world is on fire. There are a lot of issues. And what can we do when we're faced with such overwhelming problems? The only thing that has ever worked, by coming together and taking action right in our backyards, in our neighborhoods, by connecting local assets as those primary building blocks, and building on the skills of local residents and the power of local associations and the supportive functions of local institutions. So the asset-based community development. And we do have power to make meaningful change and create strong, resilient communities for all. But for that to happen, all need to be included. And it will take time, we'll make mistakes inevitably, but with intention and being kind to ourselves and determination and commitment to center equity in our community development efforts, I truly, truly believe we can achieve some great results. And I leave you with this quote from Maya Angelou that really speaks to what we're talking here about. And would like to thank you for your participation, for your engagement, and please do stay in touch. So these are my email and all the other ways you can find me. I also have a reference list if anyone is interested. I'm happy to send that. And also we're asked to take a photo together. So let's do that. If everyone is okay with that. And if you're not, feel free to turn your video off. But we'll take a group photo if everyone's okay. All right. And smile. Great. All right. Well, thank you so very much. And look forward to seeing all the great impact that you will make in your communities, and together we'll change the world. So thank you. Enjoy the conference, and we'll see you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
All right, end. I hope things